Hello, and welcome to the Autism in Black podcast. I am your host, Maria Davis-Pierre, licensed mental health counselor and the CEO and founder of Autism in Black, Inc. Today's guest is Maritza Hines. She is the owner of SPEDtacular Kids, a special education advocacy consulting practice that is dedicated to empowering families and educators of neurodivergent children. With a master's degree in Autism Spectrum Disorders, Maritza brings both expertise and compassion to her work, helping parents, guardians, and teachers create environments where every child can thrive. Through SPEDtacular Kids, she provides a range of services including IEP, 504 plan advocacy, sensory and behavioral strategies, tailored accommodations and modifications, and parent coaching sessions. She also partners with churches and children's ministries to design sensory-friendly spaces that ensure all children feel seen, safe, and celebrated. Driven by her mission to provide strategies that promote both success inside and outside the classroom, Maritza stands as a trusted advocate and guide for families navigating the world of special education. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Autism in Black podcast. Maritza, welcome to the Autism in Black podcast. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, you've been supporting families and educators through your work with SPEDtacular Kids. Can you start by sharing what brought you into this work and how your journey has evolved into the advocacy and consulting that you do today?
Absolutely. So it's actually very funny how I even got started into this. So as a child, I've always wanted to be an educator. I've never changed what I wanted to do. I got into the school district as a teaching assistant, and they put me in a classroom. It was only one position, and it was where I'm from. It's called the social support program, and that was the place that they put me. All the children in there had the autism diagnosis. I fell in love immediately. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, this is it for me. I love this. This is what I'm going to do. All of that. The teacher, because I was a TA, she encouraged me to go ahead and get the degree I needed and everything to pursue teaching. So I went through an alternative program. I got into teaching with special education and got my very own classroom the next year. And I've been in there ever since. And I always tell people, and I'm so serious when I say this, I cannot imagine myself doing anything else. Like,
Mm,
this is it
I
for
love
me.
I love when educators truly love what they do and they're so passionate about it because it really pours over into your relationship with the kids, your
Yes.
relationships with the parents, and how you advocate. So I love that. And I really want to talk about bridging the gap between school and home because parents are often told one thing at school
Yep.
and experience something very different at home. What does it take to truly bridge that gap, and how can we ensure everyone is working towards those same goals?
Well, I love what you were saying about relationship, because for me that's the number one thing is relationship. I make sure that I personally develop a relationship with all of my students' parents, as far as when I'm in the classroom. And I think that is the number one thing that kind of helps to bridge that gap. Because as you stated, sometimes we do one thing at home and at school we're totally different. I have literally had parents come in and observe, and they're like, is that the same kid? Because at home they may be like jumping up and down and need that trampoline all day long, while at school they're sitting, they're completing their assignments. Then they're like, this is not my child. But I think that is so hilarious when I hear that, because I'm like, yeah, they've been doing this. But that's the basic thing, is relationship. I started with SPEDtacular Kids actually for that reason. I It was a couple of years ago. I had a parent, we were getting ready to go into an IEP meeting. I was looking over the child's IEP, and it was something that was on there that kind of disturbed me. So I called the
Mhm.
parent and I said to her, why is this on here? Because this is not a need. Like, we don't need to address this. And she said to me, she said, Miss Hines, it's on there because they told me that if I say yes, that the school would get money, I immediately like I was so it wasn't even my school district. He came from another one. I was just so upset because as an educator who loves what they do, it's like, why would you tell a parent that? One,
Yes.
and like we money is the first thing. I want to know that my child is in good hands. I want to know that my child is making progress. I want to know, all of these things about my kid. Money I'm not concerned about. So that right there kind of stuck out to me and I was like, all right, I gotta do something about this because this is really this is not good. So that's kind of what started me with Spectacular Kids and trying to bridge that gap. And the biggest thing to bridge it is relationship. Being able to have that conversation with parents of tough conversations, even just how to integrate some of the things that we're doing at school, at home, and letting them know like what they have to say is important
Mm,
because that's something that I think that we lack when we try to bridge that gap. Because as educators, we may know X, Y, and Z, but at the end of the day, it's their kid. They know their
mhm.
child better than we know their child. No matter how much we say, "Oh yeah, they're with us 8 hours a day or 7.5 hours a day," this is still their kid, and making sure that their voice is heard
Mm.
in issues of their child. I think that's the biggest thing to bridge a gap because without that, we won't be able to do it.
I love that you talk about when you talk about kids who show up differently at school than at home. That you talking about my youngest because when every time, well, in the beginning, like around first grade, when I was going to her meetings and they were describing her, I was like, y'all got look at the name again because this is who I'm talking about. They're like, no, this is I'm like, what this girl just be over here doing, I mean, got the gift of gab at home. We can't stop her from talking. But you're saying she is a really chill, mild, meek child here in this setting. I don't know who you're talking about. So when you said that, that made me think of my child because I never know. I'm like, I don't know who y'all talking about because I see a different kid. But I really love how you're talking about listen to the parents because I know for Black parents, especially,
Mhm.
it can be difficult when we're really advocating in schools because of how we are raised and taught to navigate society. And when we're dealing with people who are in certain levels, it's
Mhm.
like, are we allowed to have our voice and are we allowed to
Right.
speak? So I know that you do a lot of advocating and talking about IEP rights and understandings. And what do you want parents to know about their power in IEP meetings, especially when they feel dismissed or unheard?
I want them to know that my biggest thing, and it may sound very elementary, you have the right to say no.
Mm,
And
mm,
I think that's what we miss. I've seen a lot of parents, and like I said, I have it as my own parents of my students that I teach every day, and then the clients that I have because I also tutor along with Spectacular Kids and talking to them, and I'm like, you can say no, right? And it's because, like you said, kind of what society has taught us to just go along with what it said because this person may know more than you, and that's really not the case. Yes, they may have the degree that says X, Y, and Z, but at the end of the day, it's your kid. So
mhm,
you have to be able to advocate and say, hey, I don't think that this should go like this. We can stop this meeting, we could table it and come back. You always have that right.
mhm,
But what we
mhm.
do sometimes as educators, and like I always tell people, I never try to downplay my fellow educator brothers and sisters because we out here and we trying to make it. But
In
what
the
I
trenches.
what I see us do as educators sometimes in those IEP meetings, actually a lot of times I was just talking to mom about this morning that we talk in teacher talk
Yes.
to a parent who does not understand or know what we're saying. So
Mhm,
that parent, especially in our Black community, sometimes feels intimidated. So they just think, hey, well, this is the best thing. This is what he or she says is the best thing. Let's go along with it. Where it may not always be the best thing. We mess up too. We
mhm,
mess up
mhm.
too. I have had I always say this, and it's probably really bad, but a lot of the teachers at the school and a previous school I was at, they know me because I am that one that's gonna say no. my student is not doing X, Y, and Z. Or yes,
Mm.
you're going to include my student in X, Y, and Z. I do not
Yep.
care. I would stand I would stand up for my kids. And I'm like that with the clients that I have, with my students in school. I have parents that call me after they have gone like to middle school and high school. And they're like, Miss Hines, what do I say? I'm like, okay, well, this is what you're gonna go in there and this is what you're gonna say. Because we're not taking that. But
Mhm.
sometimes if you don't have that person to kind of help you navigate that part or understand, like, hey, I can say no, I don't have to agree with this because this is not in the best interest of my kid. I mean, it's not a one size fit all. And I think sometimes we think that when it comes with being neurodivergent, it's a one size fit all. It's not. So
Mhm.
this may not work. Or whereas we can try this and see if it works. But if it doesn't, let's come back to the table. So I really want parents to know, your voice is so important. And if you're not sure, seek some type of guidance to help you so that you can make the best decisions. I think that's the biggest thing when it comes to your rights and knowing them and know what they are. A lot of
Yeah.
times we just don't know. We don't know that we can say these things. We don't know, they'll say, hey, we have an IEP meeting March 15th at 2 o'clock, and you're thinking, okay, March 15th at 2 o'clock, they're telling me X, Y, and Z, and I just gotta go with it. If you are not okay with what is going on, you say, let's table this meeting. Let's stop it
Yes.
and let's come back to it. They can wait. I know it's it's state things that says this has to be completed by this and this has to be completed by this. I get all of that. Trust me, as an educator, I know. But at the same time, I'm always like, are you comfortable with what is going on? And keep up with it. Don't just wait to that yearly meeting to know what's going on with your kid. Because I tell parents all the time, everybody is not like me. They're not gonna communicate with you all the time. Sometimes you have to pull it out of them and ask. But I know for me, I'm like, all right, I'm on this cell phone and I'm in our little parent app, and I'm like, all right, so and so is not being themselves today. What changed at home? Things like
Mhm.
that. But that's not everybody.
It's not.
So
It's
just
not.
being able to just know what's going on with your kid consistently and not waiting, even if you have to just have a meeting, like, can I just have a quick parent meeting, anything like that. It is our job. And I think sometimes as educators, we don't say this because we say, oh, we have so much going on. But in this field, the children, that's our job. Like, that's why we're here. So if it's not in the best interest of the kid, then why are we here? So if that means it's 2:30 and I have to stay 10 minutes, I have to stay 10 minutes so I can make sure that this that this kid is good. I mean, I always say, I laugh, I have no children of my own, but I promise you, you would never know that because somebody's child is always with me. Um, but I have kids that are not even in my class, and they'll come down here and talk to me about things. And I'm like, some days I'm like, oh goodness, I'm so tired, I want to go home. But I know that that's their safe space. So I'm like,
Mm.
okay, let's go. What's going on? Stuff like that. But I mean, that's what we're here to do. When we sign that contract, it's not just about paperwork. It's not just, especially in special education, it's not just about academics. When
Mhm.
I look at any child, but especially in my field, I want to make sure the whole child is okay. Not
Yeah.
just that they get these sight words, not just that they know how to self-regulate. I want to make sure the whole kid is all right. So that's just like, that's the biggest thing for me when it comes to with IEP and rights and all of that kind of stuff, is being consistent with checking in and knowing what's going on with your kid.
I love that. And even for the parents who do, because like me, I'm very familiar with the system. I'm very familiar,
Hmm.
but having a teacher who advocates and cares makes a world of a difference
Hmm.
for us. I often have talked about one of my son's teachers, and he had her 3 times out of the 6 years in elementary school, and she really changed the trajectory for him. She
Yes.
was such an, and still is such an advocator. He had her kindergarten, third and fourth, and now the twins are in fifth grade, and we're all like, "Oh my God, we're leaving you like next year. We're going to." She's
Right.
like,
What are we gonna do? What's gonna happen? Yeah.
Yeah, right, because she's always I mean, before I could even speak up in IEP meetings, she was like, "No, this is not what no, this is not gonna
Right.
happen. Nope, this is what needs." Because she's like, "I need to make sure his IEP is prepared in a way because not every teacher is like me, and I wanna make sure he's taken care of." And
Right.
I always and love that about her because she made sure that she was truly advocating in a way that, "Hey, we wanna make sure he is going to still succeed. We're going to make sure that he's still going to make progress because not everyone is the type of teacher I am." And just having her has made a difference for him because his preschool had made it like homeboy was not going to be doing well in kindergarten. He was not going to be happy at
Mhm.
school. But she really was like, change that game. And he started to enjoy school, excel. We started to see his
Right.
intelligence
And
in
that's
the school, and it
awesome.
changes it. It really does. So when I talk to teachers who are like you, who are like her, I'm just like, these kids who get to experience that and these parents who get to experience that are so lucky because it's sometimes it is few and far between. I know people think I bash educators. I am an educator. I do not bash the educators. It's the system and it's usually the admins that I'm really bashing.
I
But it's the
understand that.
system as a whole that is making it so difficult because teachers are burnt out. And when you live in states like Florida, it makes it so hard
Mhm.
for teachers to be able to advocate. So when teachers still have that gusto in them, I'm like, oh my God, we can't lose this one. We got to make sure that we are being your community because it makes a difference for teachers to have that community as well. Because, like you said, it is tiring. And when you want to go home and you know that you're that kid's safe space and you got to do a little more, that is leading to some burnout. So,
Mhm.
thank you for always pouring into the children. And I hope that you have a community that's pouring back into you as well.
Yes, absolutely.
And then I do want to talk about one more question about IEPs before I move on to our next topic.
Mhm.
But I know there are a lot of common misunderstandings, especially when it comes to rights and procedures. How do you help parents feel confident when it comes to rights and procedures? Because I know a lot of, for me, when they ask me, I'm like, no, I don't need, we don't even need to discuss it because I already know, right? But there are parents who say no and still don't understand, but they've just said, "No, I don't need you to explain that," but they don't know their rights or procedures.
Well, that's actually a good question. So I do I do my meetings sometimes a little bit different. I make sure
Mhm.
that before we even get to the meeting, I have a conversation with the parent. That
Mm,
just goes back to going over things, discussing and building that relationship. So I try to just ease those types of things in prior to.
mhm,
So then when we're there, if it is something that, a parent's like, oh, I don't need that, I understand that. Because at the
mhm.
same time, they have build a relationship with me, and then we enter into a meeting where it's probably like 5 or 6 other people besides me.
Yes.
So
Yes.
making sure that they understand, okay, so I'm about to talk to Miss Hines, and this is what Miss Hines is saying, and this is what my rights are. This is how this is gonna go. This, especially I would say, so when I started off in education, I started in middle school, and I went to from middle school to kindergarten, and then I went third, fourth, and fifth. And I love, everybody asks me what do I like the best. I can't really say, I don't know. But I went to third, fourth, and fifth, and now I'm in pre-K. So now it's a whole different aspect because I'm getting right after the diagnosis has been made. Parents are
Yes.
nervous. They're like, I
Mm,
don't know what to do. I tell people all the time, sometimes I think I turn into a counselor sometimes, just trying to reassure them like, hey, we are a team. Like we're a team. So since we are a team, I'm here to help you, type of things. But you get, like you said, your twins, they're fifth grade now. So
yes.
y'all been doing this for a minute. So now you're like,
Mhm,
okay, I'm ready. Sixth grade, here we come. This is how this is gonna
mhm,
go.
mhm.
But I know it probably wasn't the same when they first entered into pre-K or kindergarten. It was like, what are we about? What's going on here?
And even because I have a 13-year-old who's in eighth grade, and even still with the twins, when they started, it was different because they're so much different
Hmm.
from her. So I had to learn to advocate in a
Different
different
way.
way for them, even though it wasn't my first go around. And I was like, I don't know what to do for this boy. I ain't never been a parent to a boy child,
Right.
so he out here doing stuff.
And that even goes at me. And while we're even saying that, that's such a good point because, like, it's not a one size fit all, but boys are so much different than girls
So
anyway.
stiff.
So then
Mm-hmm.
when we get them in this classroom setting, or in these, we're trying to advocate for them for IEP meetings, they may not need the same
Mm-hmm.
things. So even just going back to building that relationship with the parent prior and making that connection of, I don't wait till, like I said, March 14th. I don't wait until March 14th to say,
Yeah.
hey, this is what I'm seeing, this is that. I do that when we come straight in. I tell all my parents, because I teach pre-K, I normally tell them, I say, we do not, in this classroom, we don't wait to May to get them ready for kindergarten. We're preparing for
Mm-hmm.
kindergarten in August when they get in
Yes.
here. So we're going over regular classroom procedures. We're going over we're going over all of this stuff, but it's the same with them. I want them to know. So, next year I won't have your child, even though they try to put up a fight with me every single year. But I was like, I don't teach kindergarten anymore, guys. But next year your child won't be with me and my TAs. So I want you to know these specific things of how
Mm-hmm.
to be an advocate, for your kid and how to speak up. But within all of that, with IEP rights and procedures, you have to. I like to just let them know ahead of time and let them know, like, I'm here for you. So if it's a question you may not want to ask in there, or I need to explain, we can do that. We can do that in a parent meeting. That's no problem.
I love that. I love that. I want to shift the conversation a little bit because I know you work in the faith-based space as well. And this topic, one, I am so interested in about really having those sensory-friendly churches and ministries.
Yes.
'Cause I know that in the Black community, religion and faith is such a foundation for a lot of us. And I think faith spaces are often overlooked when we talk about
Yes.
inclusion, and what inspired you to begin working with churches and what does a sensory friendly ministry actually look like?
Oh my gosh. So I'm really excited about that because that's not something that I talk about as often. I think it was just like a second nature thing for me. So I just started this year trying to reach out to some churches and helping them create their sensory friendly church service and all of that. And my biggest thing was that I kept hearing parents say, "Well, I would go to church, but type
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
things, or we just watch online because he can't sit that long, or I don't want
Mhm.
everybody looking at me if they're stimming or things like that."
Mhm.
And I was just kind of like, I sat there and I was like, now God, you said that the church is for everybody. So how are we gonna fix this? Like, how can I help with this? And then I started hearing more, some churches not within our Black community started doing
Yes.
some things, and I was just like, we got to do something. We have to do something. So I actually had a conversation with my pastor. She is I always say she is a pusher of of purpose. Very much so. Is the one who actually pushed me to even start Spectacular Kids and everything. And she was like, "All right, Ritzi, what are we gonna do? We need to do
Mhm.
something. What we're gonna do." So we launched our ministry, our children's ministry, and it's called Seen, Safe, and Celebrated.
Mm.
So we have sensory days and all that kind of stuff. And so I said, well, maybe I need to add this to Spectacular Kids, because I'm gradually trying to add things and all of that. So I was like, let me add this. So I did have a my first church that reached out. Of course, I wanted to start it at home first to just see
Yes.
how it was going. But I noticed that I sat in a church event, and it was in May. I think yes, it was in May. And we were in a meeting, and it was a lady leading the the meeting, and I want to say she was a behavior therapist, I think. But it was called Autism in Church. And I sat in there and I listened to some of the questions that our faith-based leaders were asking, and I was just like, wow.
Mhm. Mhm.
I was like, they really don't know.
They don't.
I'm like,
They don't.
because it was things that to me and to you, you'll just be like, seriously, type of
Mhm.
questions. But I'm like, they don't know. So what are we gonna do to get them to be
Mhm.
able to know what we need to do? Like, it is okay. We don't want to frown upon a family that has children with autism or any anything really, but
Yes.
especially, we want them to feel included. So how
Yes.
come we can do this in school, but we
Mhm.
can't do this in church?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
for me, and with just being black, I'm just gonna say, church is deep in our roots a lot,
Yes.
a lot
Yep.
of times. So I don't like to hear anyone say it, but especially my fellow brothers and sisters say that. So I was just like, okay, what are we gonna do? So what I start doing is I just started having some classes, talking to some leaders, like, hey, this is what we can do. What do you all think about this? And then we started finding out they had more neurodivergent people in there. They
Yeah.
had kids. I'm like, no, this kid is not acting out, or this kid is not just covering their ears. Like, it's too loud. Like, we
Mhm.
like loud music. It's too loud.
You over here on the drums, you hollering in the
Yeah,
mic.
I'm like, it's a lot going on.
Quit.
So what can we do? If it's anything just simple as, hey, let's just offer the parents a safe space out here
Mhm.
if you want to stand, or over here where, I've just picked up this little popping the little poppet things for, because I have this for my kids. But I'm like, if it's nothing more than giving them some fidgets, or
Yeah.
something to know, to let the parent know and the child know that they are included. So
Mhm.
I actually, like I said, we started at our church, and we do like some sensory days where we invite parents out, all that kind of stuff, and just really trying to bridge that gap too, because it's such a need.
It is.
And I think that the reason why we haven't really went deep into it, because we're fearful.
Mm.
I think it's
You
just
preaching the
because
word.
I
Yeah.
think it's just because we're fearful. We don't know
We
what to
are.
do. So once
Don't and
again, my thing is, when it comes to church, we can bring everybody in to do all these other things. Let's bring some people in to help us know what we need to do with the kids, or
it
how we can
it's
serve
needed.
these families, because that's what it's
Yeah.
about. It's about
It
serving.
is. And I think the because I go into the churches and I'm working with the leaders, because when it does come to the Black community, and I know we're not a monolith, but foundational religion, church is built into a lot of us.
Yes.
And a lot of times, faith-based leaders are the first point of contact when a parent is like, hey, this just happened. I need to talk to my pastor, right?
Yeah.
I need to talk to somebody in the church. And when they don't know how to respond because they don't have training, that's not their realm, sometimes church hurt occurs. So that's why I'm always like, we do have to educate the church leaders, because how do
Yes.
they, especially in the Black community, because education does not get to our community in the way it gets to others.
Right.
So why are we expecting them to have all of this knowledge to be able to support if nobody is training them, if nobody is
That's
talking
so
to them, if
good right
nobody,
there.
yeah, if nobody's saying, "Hey, this is the approach you can take," and like you said, small, meaningful changes within the church can make a difference to make that family feel safe and feel welcome. To know that, oh,
Right.
you're not going to be bothered if my child gets up and stems and makes noise. You're not going to say, "Get your child together." And so you're going to be like, "Oh, okay, let them do what they need to
Right.
do for them," right? And that makes a difference, and that is truly what church and faith should be about.
I think that is so good that you said that, and that just made me think of another point. Even when we go to the church leaders, and I always refer back to my pastor, Pastor Charlene D. Williams, because she said to me one time, she said, "This is not my area, so you have
Mhm.
to tell me what I need to do." But just
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
admitting that, like, this, I don't know. So I need
Yeah,
you to help me so that I can help somebody else. And I
I
think
love
that's our other thing that we face, that we have. Sometimes we have these church leaders and their thing is, I know this, I know this, I know this, but in some things you need help. I mean, in anything. I'm not a doctor, so that's why I
that.
go to
Okay.
one. Like, I don't know. So that's why I do it. So if this is my area, if I know I can help in this manner, I know I can
Mm-hmm.
serve in this manner, then listen to what my suggestions are. You know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I guess that's one thing I like I said I love about my pastor so much, because she brought that up to me, and I was like, well, that's a good that's a good thing.
Yes, stay in your lane. I love when people know this is my lane,
Mhm,
this is not my
mhm.
lane. So please come and help me so I can make sure that I'm doing what I need to do. Okay. I think sometimes people in positions don't want to admit they don't know because they
Yes.
think it's going to be a reflection of them. No, nobody knows everything. I outsource all the time because listen, there's things I don't know and
Mhm.
I'm not going to steer you wrong. So
Right.
I'd rather you get the right information than me steer you wrong. You come back and be like, Maria, that was some real messed up information you gave me.
Right.
We don't need to talk about it. So I love
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely.
Like, I don't know. I need help. So I just really hopefully for those who are listening, they can understand that you need to ask and you need to get people like Maritza or Autism in Black coming in to help your spaces because it's
Yep.
definitely needed. And I'm glad we touched on that. But before we wrap up, I have one more question for
Okay.
you. For the parents who feel overwhelmed and unsure how to advocate both at school and in the community, what's one thing that they can do today to start reclaiming their power?
Ooh, wow. That's such a good question. I would say find a community of support,
Mm,
because being overwhelmed really can come from lack of support.
yes.
Sometimes I see, I when I do my lives, like, we're getting ready to go into the holiday season, so I always talk about what that looks like for our neurodivergent kids, what how that dynamic is for family,
Mhm.
because you have family at this point in time, you have family since you haven't seen since last year this time, and what that looks like, but always have a community of, like, this is what's going on, this is how my child is, this is what the expectations are when you come into my house, type of thing. But I think to help not be so overwhelmed, you need a community of support. And not just support of telling you, hey, do X, Y, and Z, but support of listening.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's huge. Just people who understand, people who can help you, people who can listen to you. Somebody can say, "Okay, now, girl, you might be overreacting with that one. Let's take a let's take a break." I have a friend, and her daughter's on the spectrum, and she says things sometimes, and I'm like, "Girl, she's 6. Like, what you expect?" And she
Bringing her
like,
back
I
to reality.
forget about that sometimes. I'm like, she's 6-year-old kid. She gonna do it,
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
even in that space, even that community, sometimes you just need that. You need that, because I can only, like I said, I don't have any children of my own, but I can only imagine from being with older kids and younger kids what a parent can feel like being overwhelmed with trying to make everything work,
Mhm.
because you may have some sensory meltdowns. You may have, some, I don't want to eat this. I'm not eating this. I'm not touching this. I'm not doing this. And I tell everybody, one of my friends said that, she's like, yeah, our kids that have autism, they should have been, back in the day, protesting, because they can hold on to some stuff when they don't want to do
Line strong. Keep the
it.
line strong.
I'm like, yep, they probably should have. But those types of things, and then just trying to navigate life and
Mhm.
how a child changes, and making sure they have everything. But you need a community of support, whether it's support in a Facebook group, whether it's, like with Autism in Black, I go back and I read the things that you post because I'm like, oh, that's good. I need to make sure that things like that. Even if it's something like that,
Mm-hmm.
you need that support, and to know that you have a group of people that in your corner, not only to help your child but also to help you. I think
Yes. Oh.
that's very important.
Thank you for that. Community is so important. It's really the foundation of everything we do at Autism in Black is community based because we do know how important
Yes.
it is not to feel isolated and feeling like you're the only one experiencing. So thank you for hitting that home. And for those of you who are looking for a space, we have a 2-week trial to our community. The links are in the comments or the show notes. So you can try out the Autism in Black community for 2 weeks for free. And Maritza, before we go, where can the people find you? Where can they find out about Spectacular Kids? Where can they go to get some help?
But I am on all social media platforms, I believe, just about all of them. So on Facebook, we have a group. It's called SPEDtacular Kids, and it's SPED-tacular Kids. So they can always
Mhm.
find me in that private group. I do some lives in that group. I also offer out some parent sessions as well. On Instagram, it is Ritzi Hines, and on TikTok, it is Ritzi Hines. So all of those three social media platforms I am on, and I invite anyone who wants to be a part. I mean, I we can make it work and help you out.
And when you see my invite for that group, just let me on in.
Oh,
Just
it.
let me.
You know it.
I'm telling you, I'm about to as soon as about to get on that phone and get in the group.
Yes.
But we'll have all of those links in our show notes as well, so that you can make sure to engage with Maritza as well, because this is, I'm sure, a wealth of knowledge. And if y'all see me in there, don't be trying to be like, oh, there go Maria. I'm just like y'all. I'm in there getting the information just like y'all.
And like
Okay, I'm
Maria,
not.
you already know I'm in autism. I'm in Autism in Black, and like I said, I'm reading everything because even in the positions that we're in, we still need each other. We need that support.
True.
We need that community,
Yes.
because I mean, like like you said, that's what we're based on. That's what we're based on.
Hmm.
So I love that. I love to see people supporting people. I love all of that. So, and I think that Autism
Yes.
in Black is wonderful. Like you don't
Thank
even know.
you.
I have told so many people. I'm like, please go
Thank
look
you.
this up because this is gonna help you. But yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. And thank you for truly, being vulnerable and talking to us today on the show. I'm sure this is really going to help a lot of people. We've never actually had conversations around faith-based and sensory friendly. So I know that this is actually going to be so helpful to a lot of people. So thank you so much for gracing us today with your presence. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. And thank you all for tuning in for another episode of the Autism in Black podcast. And we will catch you on the next episode.